Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 3, Four Walls and a Roof. And this episode, wow, I loved this episode. This episode was crazy. I loved it. And one of the things that, I definitely loved about this episode was, and this season in general, is that this episode focused a lot on underused characters. Two characters who didn't have a lot to do last season, mainly Bob and Sasha, which I really enjoyed. We got the conclusion to the Terminus storyline, which I really loved. And we found out some more and we got some more tension between Rick and Abraham, which I definitely really loved. And in my opinion, this was the best episode of the season so far. Yes, I did think this episode was better than the first episode. Because if you think about it, guys, there are so many things that happened in this episode that I loved. I still love the first episode to death, but this episode was just so much better and took things to, took characters that I wasn't extremely fond of to a whole new level. And I gotta say, this was by far Lawrence Gilliard Jr.'s best performance on the show as Bob Stuckey. He was absolutely fantastic in this episode. So let's just get this episode, because overall, I thought this episode was amazing. So we start off literally right where last week's episode left off. Gareth is still eating Bob at the barbecue, which I still thought was a genius twist. I love that twist. And, at this point, I'm pretty much thinking, basically, Terminus is winning. And I was thinking, hey, they're going to probably come after the other members as well. And they're near a school building, which has several walkers trapped inside. The walkers can be seen inside the school, pushing up against a glass window. And Gareth tells Bob that the glass is going to break sooner or later. And Gareth also talks about how they left markings so they could find their way back to this place. Basically, they're planning on just eating him, all the way. And Gareth tells Bob that Terminus wasn't just a trap, that they were going to have a choice to join them or be eaten. And Gareth says that bears eat when they're young, when they are starving. And he talks about how some of his men almost nabbed Daryl and Carol, but they drove away in a car. And the interesting thing about Gareth is that he is not like the governor. The governor's just a lot more intimidating. And I agree with what one of my favorite YouTubers said, Mike 18. He has this charm to him. He has this sudden charm. Like, he is very, charming. He's very charismatic. He's very funny too. Like, he definitely, if you were just to talk to him, he doesn't seem like a villain. That's because he's just a little bit crazy. He basically just went crazy because, they need the food and everything, and they just went crazy. So Gareth then goes on about how he thinks women taste better than men. I thought this was a really funny line. He says his brother, Alex, who, was also killed by Rick, had a theory that women had an extra layer. I love how he's like, my brother, Alex, who was also killed by Rick, he had a theory that women had an extra layer of fat for childbearing. And Gareth says even the skinny girls like Sasha have it. And he says Sasha's pretty and adds that he thinks pretty people taste better as well. I thought that was a really funny line. And Bob seems to be crying at first, which I would expect because if you remember at the end of last week's episode, Bob started crying. However, he then starts laughing uncontrollably because he says, that they're idiots. And basically you find out that, yes, Bob was bitten because he shows them a bite mark on his shoulder. And I'm pretty sure a lot of us predicted that Bob was bitten. I personally wasn't predicting it, but Bob was bitten by a walker, and pretty much he was gonna die anyway. And he says, that they're eating tainted meat. I love that he just keeps saying they're tainted meat. Now, here's what I thought was gonna happen. I thought that what was going to happen is that now that the group ate tainted meat, that they were basically going to be forced to turn into walkers and basically survive the world as walkers. I thought that's what was going to happen to them. Now, I didn't think every single one of them. I thought a few of them will probably turn to walkers. That's actually not what happened at all, really. That's not what happened at all, and he just keeps screaming, "You've eaten tainted meat," and Gareth gets angry, kicks Bob in the face, and I thought that was a great way to start the episode. I love that, and right there, I'm like, okay, this episode's already amazing, and I'm loving every single minute of it. So meanwhile, Sasha's out looking for Bob in the woods. She hears a noise, looks through the nightscape of a rifle, and she sees someone run into the woods, but a walker suddenly appears in front of her, and she shoots the walker and clubs it with the butt of her rifle. And Tyrese and Rick show up, and Sasha tells them that someone is getting away in the woods, but Tyrese insists that if they go in there alone, they won't be coming back. So Sasha says that Bob's alone, but Rick says he might not be alone because Daryl and Carol are missing as well. Now, we know where Daryl and Carol went. Daryl and Carol went into that car to find Beth. That's where they went. So, they don't know where they are at this point, though. So, back at the church, Sasha asks Father Gabriel what he's doing, and Sasha insists that this is all I really love this twist because basically they start to blame everything that's going on Father Gabriel because think of it kind of makes sense at this point. He's kind of like the odd man out at this point. He's very different from them. And basically, he pulls a knife, but Gabriel keeps saying, I had nothing to do with this. I had nothing to do with this. And, basically, I thought that was a fantastic twist, that basically they're blaming Gabriel. I thought that was really good, and definitely does make sense. So, they have no idea that the Terminus group is back. They don't even suspect it, and Rick asks Gabriel about the woman at the food bank and the carving outside the church that says, you'll burn for this, and Gabriel says that he locks the doors at night. He says people from his congregation came looking for a safe place at his church, and he says they came early and the doors were still locked. He says that the dead came from them and tore them apart. He says he buried their bones, and he says the Lord sent them here to finally punish him. And Gabriel falls to the ground and sobs. He says, I always lock the doors, I always lock the doors. So you can basically see that Gabriel has really been through a lot of shit, definitely. He definitely has been through a lot of shit in the sense that a lot of people have come to visit his church. A lot of people have wanted survival. He hasn't been able to give everyone the survival that they need. Even though he wants to, he just doesn't, he can't give everybody survival, so some of them die, and that's why they wrote that message. And it definitely got me to sympathize more for Gabriel's character. I already loved his character, but this episode got me to sympathize with him even more, even though Gabriel was not the focus of this episode, which I definitely really enjoyed. So, Glenn then notices that there's something outside lying in the grass. They run outside, and then they find Bob. And they get Bob inside, and Bob is just so scared and traumatized, and he's very weak. You can tell he's probably gonna die. And the thing that I do like is that he doesn't die from the termites. He dies because, of natural causes, basically, and I thought that was really good. So, he now has a stoop for a leg, and he tells him the story of how he was captured by Gareth and his people, and, he says they took him to what looked like a school, and they were eating his leg right in front of him, and Rick asks about Daryl and Carol, but he says that Gareth said they drove off, and Tara offers to go get Bob some pain medication, but Bob tells her to save it. Bob shows Sasha the bite mark on his shoulder. He says it happened at the food bank, and of course, Sasha's devastated because, they really did like each other. So, Bob starts to pass out, and Gabriel offers the sofa in his office, and Sasha thanks him. And then Rick asks Gabriel if he knows the school that Bob was talking about, and Gabriel says it's an elementary school, which is only about a 10-minute walk through the woods. So, meanwhile, we still have this whole conflict with Rick and Abraham. Abraham thinks it's ready to go to Washington right now, like in the middle of the night. He wants them to leave in the middle of the night, and I have no idea why specifically the middle of the night, because here's the thing. You can't see anything, so why would you leave in the middle of the night? Like, do they have, flashlights or something? Like, I would not think that would be a good idea to leave in the middle of the night. And, Rick insisting they can't leave Daryl and Carol. I think that is a proper response. They need everyone to go to Washington. But Abraham's saying that they can't stay because there's a clear threat to Eugene. Because, remember, the whole reason to go to Washington is for Eugene to explain to them how the virus started and to find out how to stop it. That's why they're going to Washington. And Rick asks if they're leaving on foot. Abraham says they fixed the bus themselves. They end up getting into a screaming match, and I thought this was definitely really intense. And one of the things I love that this scene showed was the importance of them being reunited as a group. Glenn steps in and insists that they need each other, and Tara said that she has an idea. And she says, if Abraham stays one more day to help, that she'll go with them. And Abraham says Glenn and Maggie would need to come as well, but they refuse. And he orders Eugene this time to go, but Eugene says he doesn't want to. And after Abraham barks now, Eugene gets up to go with them. And Rick tells, and also, so basically, Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita, they're planning on leaving. Tara's planning on leaving with him, and possibly Glenn and Maggie. So, Rick tells Abraham that he's not taking the bus. Before Rick and Abraham get into it, Glenn says that if Abraham stays another day, that he and Maggie will go with them. And Abraham agrees to wait 12 more hours. He's going to give them 12 more hours to decide, and I thought the scene was definitely really well done. I really enjoyed that. So, Sasha's saying to Bob, and Bob says the one good thing about getting kicked in the face is that it made him forget about the pain in his leg. And Sasha says she's not playing that game anymore. Sasha wants to know why Bob didn't tell her about getting bitten. And Bob says he knew when he told her it would have become all about the end, and he really liked the middle. And I thought that was a really great quote because they really had this genuine connection. I don't want to say they were lovers because they really weren't. They weren't a couple by any means. However, they did have an attraction for each other. You can definitely tell that both of them definitely had a mutual attraction for each other. And he really didn't want it to end. He really didn't want it to. He wanted to continue. He had genuine feelings for her. He knew that she had genuine feelings for him, and he wanted the magic to continue. So I thought that was definitely a very good quote, and definitely really, really good. So, Rick is telling the group about a plan to make a move before Gareth and his group do, and he asks Tyrese if he's up for it, and Sasha walks in and says she's coming with them. She's planning on, helping them here. And Tyrese says that she should stay with Bob, and Tyrese says basically that Sasha shouldn't throw away the time she has left with Bob. And I thought this was great, because basically, Tyrese wishes he had more time with Karen, and basically tells Sasha that the only thing Bob is going to want to see when he opens his eyes is her face. And she gives Tyrese a knife and tells him that if Bob stops breathing, to put the knife through his temple because that's what Bob would want. And I think that definitely is really good because if Bob dies, he is going to turn into a walker because he's infected. So he knows that Bob would not want to be a walker, so she just wants him to die of natural causes, so that way he will die and he won't turn back into a walker. And I thought that made tons of sense because, Bob would have wanted that. He doesn't want to turn into a walker, we know this. So, I thought that was definitely really good. So Rick, Sasha, and the rest leave through the woods to head to the elementary school, and Gareth and his group walk out of the woods and they up to the church, and one of Gareth's group breaks the door open after they enter the church, and Gareth says, I guess you know we're here, and we know you're here, and we're armed, so there's really no point in hiding anymore. And so they've been watching them, they know Bob, Eugene, Rosita, Tyrese, Carl, and Judith are there. By the way, no, Carl's barely in this episode, I don't know what happened, but okay. Gareth says that Rick and the rest walked out with a lot of their guns, and Gareth says that they don't know where they all are, but it isn't a big place. And he says they know they're hiding behind one or two doors, and they have more than enough firepower to take down both doors. And Gareth appeals to Father Gabriel to open the door, and Gabriel says that he can walk away and take the baby if he does. Take the baby with him if he does. Sorry, guys. Judith is, crying hysterically. She's very freaked out. And Gareth realizes basically where they are hiding here. So it gets really intense. And I'm like, no, Judith, don't cry. But what can you do? I get, Judith's a baby. She's gonna cry. She's, very threatened by what's going on, definitely. And what can you do, really? So two of Gareth's men are standing outside the door where Carl's group is hiding. They get shot in the head, and it's Rick and his group. And Rick tells Gareth and the rest to put their guns down, and Gareth threatens to fire, and this scene was amazingly well done, in my opinion. Just so amazingly well done. There were so many things I loved about this scene. And one of the things I loved about the scene was that Rick gives him this really good speech. I definitely really enjoyed that. And basically he tells Gareth and the rest to put their guns down. He threatens to fire right into the office. And Rick shoots his fingers off, which I was not expecting. I thought that was extremely intense. I'm like, seriously, Rick? His fingers? That was awesome. That was the moment where I'm like, okay, Rick is a total badass this season. And he says there's no point in begging. And Gareth asks why they didn't kill him when they came in. And Rick says that they didn't want to waste the bullets. And I thought that was just so awesome when he said that. I thought that was an amazingly well done scene, in my opinion. I was just like, this is so intense, and I love every single minute of it. And Gareth tells Rick that they used to help people. And Gareth says that if he lets them walk away, the promises they will never, he promises they will never cross paths again. He says, look, if you let us walk away, we're not going to go after you again. And honestly, I think Gareth was sincere at this point. I really feel he was, because Gareth seemed genuinely terrified, And we saw that Gareth, while he is crazy, I do think he can be a bit rational sometimes about things. But I think he's just gone to the point of insanity where there's no saving him pretty much. And I think they realize this now, that basically they can't save him. They want to save him, but they can't because he's just too far gone. If you remember, there was that line that Rick said last year in episode 8 of season 4, Too Far Gone, where he says, look, we're not too far gone. The termites are definitely too far gone. They're too far gone. They have pretty much lost all their humanity. They don't have common sense. Like, they're just not, they're too far gone. It's that simple. So, I thought that was definitely very well done. So he doesn't want to waste the bullets. He doesn't really want to kill Gareth. Gareth says, why didn't they just kill him when they came in? And Gareth tells Rick that they used to help people. They did. And we know this because if you remember, his mother said that sign was true. That sign was true. The sign about it being a paradise. The sign of Terminus being, an absolute paradise to everyone. And a place for salvation. That was all true. And Rick knows that this was true, and I think it's very interesting that Gareth brought that up, because it is true. It is true that this was a place for salvation. It is true that this is a place where people can basically feel very relaxed about themselves and very happy about themselves. So, definitely, I really like that line. And Gareth says that if he lets them walk away, he promises they will never cross paths again. Oh, I already read this. Basically, but Rick reminds Gareth of how he crossed Bob's path. He crossed Bob's path, and basically he killed Bob. So, obviously Rick is pissed at that. And basically, this is very much like what happened with Herschel. Because if someone dies from Rick's group, and it's their fault, and it's somebody else's fault, Rick will kill them. We know this. And he says, and I love what Rick says. He says, probably one of the most badass lines I've heard Rick say in a long time. Like, this is a totally great line. I love this line to death. I thought this was just a fantastic line. He says, I already made you a promise. He pulls out a machete and kills Gareth right then and there. That was amazing, because I knew that Rick would get his revenge on Gareth. Like, you just had to know that. Rick had to get his revenge on Gareth. Gareth was his main target from the beginning. Gareth was the person he wanted to take down the most. It does not surprise me at all that he took down Gareth. I love that he took down Gareth, because Gareth totally deserved it from the beginning. And that was such a good payoff, definitely. And as I said, I personally thought that what they were going to do here was show that these, everyone in Terminus was going to turn to walkers. But at the end of the day, I was fine with this because the payoff was absolutely fantastic. The payoff was great. I had no problem with it. I thought the payoff was just perfect, and I wouldn't have had it any other way, really. So, he looks up at Rick, and basically, Gareth is dead now. And then Sasha and Abraham kill Gareth's other 2 surviving group members, and Michonne recovers her sword, which was great to watch because, Michonne was very lost without her sword, and I thought that was great to see her get her sword back. And basically now they're free because Terminus is gone. Officially, Terminus is gone. Every single person from Terminus has died. All the termites are dead. And I thought that was great because basically Rick and all of them, they've killed them. They've beaten them, and that was great. And I thought that was awesome. So, Tyrese is looking in shock. He had no idea this was going to happen. And Father Gabriel is visibly shaken by all the bloodshed in his church, which is understandable because it's a fucking church. Like, I don't expect blood in a church. And he says, it's the Lord's house. And I love Maggie's line. She says, no, it's just 4 walls and a roof. And that's why this episode is called 4 Walls and a Roof. And I really like the way they referenced that in the episode. Thought that was definitely very well done. And, if you think about it, it really is just 4 walls and a roof. Even though it is a church, it's not a place of safeness anymore. There's no such thing as a safeness. There's no such thing as, I understand that, Gabriel still has his morals and everything, but at the same time, there is nowhere safe except for possibly Washington. And I'm pretty sure that this convinces Maggie and Glenn to head to Washington. So, Maggie's telling Bob that he will always be, and basically we get the last scene with Bob. I thought this was amazingly done. Maggie's telling Bob that he will always be with them and a part of them, and the group's starting to leave, but Bob asks Rick and Judith to stay. And he says his final goodbye to Rick, and I thought this was great. He says he just wants to thank him that before the prison, he didn't know if they were if any good people left. And Rick took him in, and he took him in and he made him feel happier and gave him a home and everything. And Bob says, even in light of current events, the nightmares won't end, but they shouldn't end who you are. They shouldn't end who you are. And Bob says, just look at Judith and tell me the world isn't going to change. And I thought that was a great line, because we can see that even though Bob is upset at Rick for a few things that he did, and at the end of the day, Rick is the leader of this group. He is the leader of this group. He knows what he's doing. He's a good leader. Really, he is a good leader, I have to say. I mean, you guys might disagree with me, but I personally think Rick is a very good leader. He is very intelligent. He knows when to do things. I just think he's a very good leader, in my opinion. So Sasha's sitting next to Bob when he starts to come around, and Bob is smiling, and Sasha asks him why. And Bob says that he thinks he was dreaming, and Sasha was smiling back at him in the dream. And basically, that is the last thing he ever says when he's alive, because he stops breathing. And Sasha's crying because she knows what she has to do now. She knows that she has to permanently kill him so he won't turn into a walker. And Tyrese walks in. Sasha gives him the knife and stabs Bob in the temple. It was a very hard scene to watch, but on this show, it doesn't surprise me, because there are so many times when they've had to kill people to basically survive, and something like this, Rick would not, not Rick, Bob would not want to, turn into a walker. I know that for a fact. Because, here's the thing, turning into a walker is not a good thing. If you're a walker, you have to survive the world as a walker. You basically have to try not to die. That's what you have to do. You have to try not to die as a walker. And I'm pretty sure that, Sasha and Tyrese and all them, I feel like definitely they would not want Bob to be a walker and have to deal with that, because Bob was not a bad guy by any means. In any way, shape, or form was Bob a bad guy. He was not a bad guy at all, and I definitely thought that was a great scene. So Sasha's making a cross for Bob, and Abraham hands a map for their route to Washington, D.C. to Rick. And he leaves in the bus with Eugene, Rosita, Maggie, Glenn, and Tara, and Rick and the rest remain at the church. So now they're separated again, but they are in a place where they're basically safe. Because, Rick and his group are at the church, and I definitely think they're going to go eventually, but I feel like Rick is definitely taking his time. They need to clear up some things. They need to find out what's going on with Daryl and Carol. They need to find out if they really are safe, and he unfolds the map, and I love the note that Abraham gave him. It literally says, sorry I was an asshole, come to Washington, the new world's going to need Rick Grimes, and you can definitely tell that I'm pretty sure Rick is eventually going to go to Washington. I don't know why. I don't know when. I don't know why he will decide. I definitely feel that he's gonna go. At this point, he doesn't want to, because not everything is, safe right now. They just killed the people from Terminus. He needs to make sure everything else is good with the world. He needs to make sure everyone, everything is safe and they can head to Washington. Definitely when they are safe, yes, I do want them to head to Washington. However, I don't think now is the right time to head to Washington yet. Now, Abraham is just so determined that I definitely feel that maybe getting to Washington is going to backfire them. I feel like there's definitely going to be something in Washington, maybe like bad zombies or something. I mean, definitely there could be something in Washington that's not good for them. Maybe there'll be more Terminus people in Washington. Who knows? You never know, really. So definitely, I did think it was interesting that they closed the Terminus arc in this episode, because they made it seem like Terminus was going to be the main storyline of the season. And I like that it wasn't, because I definitely like, basically, the theme of the season is family and redemption and revenge. And I think that is just great. So, Rick goes over to help Tyrese dig a grave for Bob, and he says he never asked how it was for Tyrese getting to Terminus, and he says it killed him, and they keep digging, and Rick says it didn't, and I thought that was great, because, he says, he still has a great spirit, and Tyrese is definitely probably my favorite character of this episode. I really am loving his character this season. I love that Tyrese definitely has his morals, but he will kill someone if he needs to. I love that Tyrese is being, a family man. He's very, everyone's sort of getting their morals back. Here's the thing they're learning from Father Gabriel. They have their morals back, sort of. I think Rick sort of is getting his morals back. I think they're all getting their morals back because of Gabriel. Gabriel really is an advantage to the group, because he's giving them morals back, and he's giving them hope and faith, which I thought was great. Speaking of Gabriel, we then get a very nice scene between him and Michonne, which I thought was great. Michonne is standing guard with her sword. You know, she's very happy to get her sword back, obviously, because that's what makes Michonne such a badass and makes her Michonne. And Father Gabriel comes out and sits beside her. And Gabriel says he can't sleep. And he says it's not just what happened last night, and saying it's what happened before out loud. And Gabriel says he hears their voices in his head. And Michonne says that's not going to stop, but it won't be all the time. And I thought that was definitely really good, because Michonne is very experienced with things like that. I thought that was definitely really good. Because as we know, Michonne last season was having all those flashbacks to when she was young and what she, you know, when she, before the virus happened, and, you know, her family and everything. And, you know, I definitely thought Michonne and her that was a perfect conversation. I wouldn't have thought of anyone, at first it was like, why is he having a conversation with Michonne? But then I understood why, because she was having flashbacks also last season, and we know this. So, Michonne hears a sound in the woods. She draws her sword and goes over to investigate, and it's Daryl. So Daryl's back, and Michonne's relieved, and she's asking where Carol is, and Daryl yells, "Come on out," and the screen goes to black. So I kind of feel like Daryl and Carol found some information. I kind of feel like Carol was kidnapped, honestly. I feel like maybe Carol was kidnapped and taken by someone. But overall, this episode was completely amazing. I loved it. And I can't wait for next week's episode. Apparently, we're going to find out what happened to Beth in the next episode, because all the promo shows is Beth in this insane asylum, which I think is going to be really cool. And honestly, if they want to do that, go ahead. But I really feel next week's episode should be Beth-centric. I'd love to see a Beth-centric episode. I think Beth is a great character, and I'd love to see that happen. Abraham and his group going to Washington, I think, is definitely going to backfire on them. I definitely feel they're going a little bit too soon. I feel like Rick knows there's something in Washington that is not safe right now, and I think basically they're going to find this out very soon. And definitely I think Rick and his group are going to go rescue them. I think that's what's probably going to happen here. If Rick finds out that Daryl and Carol are alive, he'll probably go to Washington, but I don't think that it's exactly safe right now. I definitely feel there's something in Washington that's going to affect every single one of them. I don't know exactly what it is that's in Washington. I just feel like it's not safe, you know? There's just a part of me that wants to think that it's safe, but I just don't feel like it's safe right now. There's something about it that it really, I don't think is safe, in my opinion. I just don't think that it's safe for them to go to Washington right now. As far as what happened to, you know, where Carol is, I think that Carol, you know, I think she's there or she's taken by someone. It's that simple. I think maybe I kind of feel like she was taken by someone. I don't know. Maybe they found who kidnapped Beth and they took her. We're going to find out in the next episode who kidnapped Beth, which I'm really looking forward to. I think that's going to be cool to see. Father Gabriel, do you feel that Father Gabriel is actually getting them their morals back? They're sort of starting to get their morals back. I feel like they're sort of understanding what he's doing, and I think that definitely is very interesting that they kind of are understanding his point of view and kind of understanding what he's doing. So I thought that was really interesting. Did you like the way they closed the Terminus arc? I thought that was absolutely fantastic, and I love the way they use the underused characters in this episode, definitely. Because Lawrence Gilliard Jr. is a fantastic actor. I didn't realize how good of an actor he was till this episode. Like, he is absolutely fantastic. I thought he was great as Bob Stuckey, and I'm actually going to miss him. I was surprised by how affected I was by Bob Stuckey's death, because he's barely been in the show and barely had anything really, any kind of depth to really do. Not really much depth at all. I mean, the episode that he was in alone, I did not personally like. So, you know, he hasn't really had too much to do, and I thought that was definitely really cool that they chose to focus on him in the episode. I thought that was definitely very well done. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys saw this episode. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to ask. Who do you think is going to be their next threat? Definitely they're going to have another threat. Who do you think is going to be the next threat? Now that Terminus is gone, they are going to have a new threat, and I definitely feel there's going to be something in Washington. Do you feel that definitely Abraham is being very impatient? I definitely feel like Abraham needs to wait, and Rick knows that there's something in Washington that's just not safe for them yet, and we'll have to see what happens there. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I personally love the episode. Thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of the original. So I'll see you guys for that. I mean, actually, no, it'll be for the affair. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.